Hi, my name is Reuben Collins. I'm a recently retired professor in the physics department here at the Colorado School of Mines. What I want to tell you about today is an experience that I had on sabbatical leave in France. Before my wife and I left for France on that sabbatical year, we took a conversational French course, a short course. The idea was to develop survival skills, to be able to order a meal, to go to a restaurant, things like that. But we also knew when we got there we were going to have to take additional French, and in fact that was the attraction of going to France, was immersing ourselves in a new culture and learning a new language in a country where people spoke that language. When we arrived, we signed up for a class at a local university that's more of a continuing education university. And it was on a Friday afternoon that it met. That was convenient for our work, and it was not too expensive. That was also kind of nice. During the first class period, I'll have to admit I was a bit challenged. My vocabulary wasn't up to the level that it should be. I wasn't as good at grammar as I should be, but I felt pretty good about it because I could understand what was going on, and I felt like this course was going to challenge me, move me out of my comfort zone, and I would learn French much more quickly that way. And I felt that way right until the very end of class. And at the end of class, the professor gave our homework assignment for the next week, and I had a very difficult time understanding what we were supposed to do. When we left, my wife and I compared notes, and it turned out she'd had some difficulty too. So I told her, well, I'll go back and ask again what the assignment was, what we're supposed to do. We're both really good students. We want to do the right thing for next Friday, and it's best just to ask. So I went back in. The professor was still there, and in my pidgin French, asked if the professor could re-explain the assignment, that I hadn't understood it. So she did, but this time she spoke a lot faster than she had before, and I couldn't catch anything. And I did the same thing we all do when we're in a situation like that. When somebody's explaining something to us, we're not quite getting it. I nodded and made gestures that made it seem like I was understanding what she was saying. And I left, and I had just turned around the corner outside the door when I realized I was still clueless. So I went back in a third time and asked the professor if she could explain it, that I really hadn't gotten it, and now she started seeming like she was getting frustrated with me. She used expressions that I did understand, things like très simple, very simple, and pas difficile. I imagine she was telling me that I was making this assignment much harder than it actually was, and that's something that I've told students here at this school quite frequently. So I left, and I still didn't quite understand what I was supposed to do, and that actually became a theme for a lot of the language courses we took while we were in France. We took several semi-intensive courses, and in each class I found that difficulties understanding the instructions and what I was supposed to do were more problematic for me than the actual knowledge level to complete the task once I understood what the task was. And this actually turned out to be quite a profound insight for me. I think for everybody else it makes perfect sense, but I had never really made the connection between how you could have all the background knowledge to complete something, to be successful with it, all the skills, but you still might not be able to do it if you didn't understand what you're supposed to do, the instructions. Well, when I returned to the United States after my year in France, I was let's say, a lot more sympathetic with foreign students who are here. And I changed how I was teaching. For example, when I was giving instructions for the homework or for anything, I never left them till the end of class when I was rushed. I always tried to give them at the beginning of class or in the middle. And when I give those instructions, I always tried to talk quite slowly and enunciate as clearly as I could, and definitely stay away from slang. I guess another thing that I've sort of realized is that when I talk about languages, it sounds like French, English, things like that, but actually for those of us working in science, engineering, and math, those subjects have their own languages. And for new students, especially first-year students on our campus, those languages can be as foreign as French. I've had quite a few times when I was working with students and discovered that the reason they were having trouble, for example, with a homework problem, was not because they didn't understand the science or the physics required to complete the problem. It was because they didn't quite understand what they were supposed to do. And I guess another thing that came out of this is I developed a real appreciation for the foreign students who come to our campus. There are quite a few that I've worked with over the years, and they come here, they take our classes, they're successful, and they do it all in a language that was not the language they grew up speaking. It's really amazing, and I'm in awe of them. It also means that even though I like to think of myself as a really good student, there's certain things that other people are a lot better at, and learning languages seems to be one of them. Every story like this should have a happy ending, and this one does too. I learned enough French to be able to survive, to eat. I even made it to the next level of French, which is where you can go to the phone store and you can order a telephone and pay the deposit. I can call up the repair place and ask them to come and fix the washing machine and figure out how much it's going to cost. I still have difficulties with the third level of French. The third level of French is not where you pay someone, but where they pay you. It's where you take that phone back and get your deposit back. Of course, the language then becomes a little more technical and difficult, as it turns out. But I'm still hopeful and I'm still working on it. Okay, thank you very much for listening to my Failure Friday video.